in a sport built on respect, honor, and pure violence. Sometimes things go too far. Feuds that don't die after the bell rings.
Your wife is in me DMs!
Grudges that live outside the cage. And this is not about great rivalries. It's about the kind of hate that keeps fighters up at night.
I don't hate anyone, Ariel, but if there was a line right before hate, Colby's standing there.
Welcome to the top 10 most unsettled UFC feuds.
Once I realized that he let his guard down, I snuck in 2 punches.
The kind that still feels like they could explode at any second. Number 10. Dustin Poirier versus Colby Covington. Let's start with a feud that feels deeply personal, a beef rooted in betrayal, not just competition.
I'm picking on a guy that said it's on site in the media.
Dustin Poirier and Colby Covington were once teammates at American Top Team. They trained side by side, shared the same gym, and even cornered each other in fights. But Colby switched from silent wrestler to controversial, loudmouth caused friction.
He's a big mouth fucking idiot.
Especially when he started trash talking his own teammates to sell fights.
Dustin, you're a fucking coward. Your wife's a hoe.
At first, Dustin stayed quiet. But as Colby crossed more lines, dragging Poirier's name into interviews, calling him a fake Louisiana swamp trash.
He's crying, oh, I didn't accomplish my dreams. 25 minutes paid in full. I deserve this. I'm Louisiana swamp trash.
And mocking his charitable efforts, Dustin snapped. In 2021, Poirier said in an interview, I'll never fight Colby in the UFC, but I'll fight him in a parking lot for free. That wasn't just talk, it was real hate. Real emotion, and Poirier doesn't fake it for cameras. Colby, of course, kept pushing buttons. He claimed Dustin didn't want the smoke. He even said he would fight him at welterweight and humiliate him. The UFC fans wanted it. Dana White hinted at it. But Dustin refused, not because he feared Colby, but because he didn't want to give him the platform. Still, the tension never left. The press events at gym, on social media, the venom stayed. It's one of those feuds where the cage might not be the place to settle it. But you just know if they ever see each other in public, it's on. Number 9. Paddy Pimblett versus Ilia El Matador Topuria. This feud didn't start in the cage. It started with trash talk and almost ended in a hotel lobby. It could have been a fist fight. Back in 2022, Paddy Pimblett, the rising star from Liverpool, made a joke during a podcast calling Georgia, Ilia Topuria's country, Russia, mocking the nation's history. What Paddy thought was harmless banter, Topuria took as a personal insult to his people and culture. Ilia didn't forget. Fast forward to UFC London Fight Week. Fighters are in the same hotel. Cameras catch Ilia Topuria walking up to Paddy and throwing a hand sanitizer bottle at him. After a few words, chaos erupts in seconds. Chairs fly, security jumps in, Paddy's crew scrambles. No punches land, but it was one of the most wildest off-camera altercations in recent UFC history. Paddy immediately took it to social media, laughing it off, calling Ilia a nobody. Ilia, on the other hand, wanted real smoke. He said he can't hide behind Dana forever. Since then, both men have gone separate directions. Ilia rose through the ranks, dominated Emmett, and became champion. Paddy struggled against Jared Gordon. Jared Gordon took time off and hasn't fought elite competition yet. But the beef is still there. Ilia doesn't forget disrespect. Paddy doesn't back down from a challenge. And if Paddy ever puts together a win streak and gets a chance to fight Ilia Topuria in the lightweight division, you know the UFC won't resist booking that. Because the heat is real, the tension is real, and someone's going to sleep if that fight ever happens. Number 8. Alex Pereira versus Jamahal Hill. This one brewed in silence until one moment lit the match. Hill was the UFC light heavyweight champion. Alex Pereira, the cold, stone-faced warrior who dethroned Adesanya at middleweight, had just moved up to 205. The fans speculated, analysis debated, but Hill made that one thing clear. Alex hasn't done enough to fight him. Pereira didn't respond. He let his fist do the talking. He beat Jan Blachowicz, then he beat Jiri Prochazka, and became champion in just 2 fights. And when the gold around his waist, Hill, after recovering from an injury, was next. Then came UFC 300, the lights, the pressure, the history. Hill topped all fight week, even saying Pereira had no ground game. Alex had nothing like a man walking into war. What happened next was savage. Alex Pereira flatlined Hill in round 1 with a vicious left hook. The same left hook that haunted Adesanya. The same one that built a legacy.
Boom, boom, boom. But you know, like, if that dude hits you with that, you're going to sleep.
You go to sleep. Everybody goes to sleep.
Hill's body shut down mid-air. The crowd went silent. The rivalry over in one clean punch. But the feud, that might still linger. After the fight, Hill dismissed him. It was just a lucky punch. Pereira, again, and said nothing. He simply posted with a belt and walked off like a ghost from a samurai film. And that silence? That's louder than any insult. There's one short, explosive feud, but it proved something undeniable. You don't talk down to Pereira unless you're ready to pay for it with your consciousness. They even almost had an altercation in a UFC gym, where Alex Pereira threw gloves at Jamal Hill and said, "Let's fight right here, right now, let's settle it." But Hill, he said, "I don't want to fight now. I only fight for money. I'm not getting paid. I won't fight for free." Number 7, Daniel Cormier versus Jon Jones. This wasn't just a feud. It was personal. It was nasty. It was legendary. Daniel Cormier, the Olympian, the company man, the good guy. Jon Jones, the protege, the wild card, the fighter with demons and unmatched talent. From the very beginning, they hated each other. No fight hype, not scripted drama, real hate. At the press conference in 2014, they almost brawled on stage. Cameras captured them exchanging death threats off-air. Jon Jones said, "I could literally kill you if I wanted to." Cormier snapped back, "Say that to my face." Then came UFC 182. Jon Jones beat Cormier by decision, controlled him, out-wrestled the Olympian, embarrassed him. But the victory didn't end the feud. It only poured gasoline on it. Why? Because Jones couldn't stop imploding. He was stripped of the title after a hit and run. Cormier picked up the belt, but critics called him a paper champion. Cormier defended it with honor, yet he was haunted by one name, Jon Jones. Then came UFC 214, the rematch, DC versus Jones 2. Cormier fought like a man possessed until round 3. A head kick out of nowhere dropped him. The fight was over. Cormier cried in the Octagon. The MMA world had crowned Jones once again. But then, boom, another twist. Jon Jones tested positive for Turinabol. The result was overturned. DC was reinstated as champion. Jones called it a mistake. DC called it cheating. Jones said he was the GOAT. DC said he'd never respect a fighter who's juiced. The UFC tried a third fight, but it never happened. Today, both men are retired. Jones recently retired as the heavyweight king. DC is in the commentary booth, but the hatred still simmers. Even in interviews, even now, years later, they still throw subtle jabs. This wasn't just a rivalry. It was two legacies colliding. Two men who could never coexist in the same division or in the same room. Number 6, Tony Ferguson versus Khabib Nurmagomedov. This isn't just a rivalry, it's a curse. Tony Ferguson versus Khabib Nurmagomedov was booked 5 times and never happened. In a sport filled with chaos, this feud became legendary without a single punch thrown. The origins was in 2015. The UFC first booked Tony Ferguson versus Khabib in 2015. Both men were in wild win streaks. Both were violent, unorthodox, and dominant. The fight had future classic written all over it. But then, Khabib pulled out with a rib injury. Tony took a replacement and won. No big deal, right? Wrong. That was the beginning of the curse. The curse timeline. 2015, Khabib out because of injury. 2016, Tony out because of lung issues. 2016, Khabib out because of failed weight cut. 2018, Tony tears his knee tripping over a wire during media week. And then 2020, a global pandemic caused by COVID-19 canceling the bout around 5 times. Each time more ridiculous than the last. Fans started calling it the most cursed fight in UFC history. Dana White even said, I'm never booking that fight again. It's just not meant to happen. The UFC gets real. The beef gets real. While early on, there was mutual respect, things got tense later. Tony called Khabib a pull-out merchant and mocked his padded record. He's never fought a guy like me. All he does is hug people's legs. Khabib clapped back. He is a stupid guy. He talks too much. And then Tony won the interim title in 2017. Khabib refused to acknowledge it. There was only one real belt. I will take it when I fight Conor McGregor. Both men felt like a real champion, and they both had a loyal army of fans ready for war in the comment section. In the end, the fight finally died in 2020 when Khabib got stuck in Russia due to COVID travel bans. Tony stayed in the card and fought Justin Gaethje instead and got badly beaten. That loss changed everything. Khabib went to defeat Gaethje and retired undefeated. Tony? He went on a brutal losing streak, never the same after the war with Gaethje. The dream was dead. But still, to this day, fans ask, who would have won? Tony in his prime or Khabib in his? No fight, no face-offs, but feud so powerful it haunts the sport. Number 5. Jorge Masvidal versus Colby Covington. This wasn't just bad blood. This was a brotherhood turned into a war. It went from roommates to training partners to the man sucker punching the other man in the streets of Miami. Let's rewind. The beginning. And the best friends at American Top Team. Masvidal and Covington weren't just teammates at American Top Team. They were roommates, brothers, cornermen. They trained together, cornered each other's fights, and even lived under the same roof. Colby once said, Masvidal is my best friend. We're taking over this game together. They called themselves the King of Miami and the People's Champ. But everything changed when Colby became chaos. Colby becomes a heel after nearly being cut by the UFC. Colby reinvented himself. He adopted a loud, obnoxious pro wrestling villain persona, attacking countries, fighters, and anyone who didn't support him. But when he allegedly refused to pay Masvidal's striking coach after a training camp, things got personal. Masvidal felt disrespected. American Top Team coaches felt betrayed. And Colby? He went full WWE, calling Jorge Street Judas, a journeyman, a fragile guy who's never been champion material. The fallout at American Top Team. Tensions escalated fast. Verbal insults turned into gym rules. They couldn't train on the same mats. Eventually, both fighters left American Top Team. Their feud was now full-blown. Colby told the media he knew all of Jorge's weaknesses. Masvidal said Colby was just a rat who sold his soul for clout. UFC 272, The Fight. UFC saw the heat and cashed it in. Main event, Jorge Masvidal versus Colby Covington. A grudge match with no belts, just hatred. The fight? It was dominant. Colby's relentless wrestling smothered Jorge for 5 rounds. Masvidal landed a few shots, but it was clear. Colby won. He screamed in the cage, I'm better than you, Jorge. I'm the king of Miami now. But the story didn't end there. The assault in Miami. 2 weeks later, Colby was dining at a steakhouse in Miami. Out of nowhere, Masvidal allegedly attacked him wearing a hoodie and a mask. Colby suffered a chipped tooth and an injured wrist. Masvidal was arrested and charged with felony battery. He pleaded not guilty but posted bond. The fight spilled out of the Octagon and into the streets. Mind games and legacy. Colby stayed active, eventually fighting for the title again. Masvidal retired after losing to Gilbert Burns, but the beef remains alive. Masvidal says, some people just deserve to get smacked even after the fight. Colby says, he's a coward. He couldn't beat me in the cage, so he tried to do it on the sidewalk. This feud wasn't about ranking or belts. It was about betrayal, loyalty, and pride. 2 Miami warriors who once shared dreams now share court documents. Number 4. Conor McGregor versus Jose Aldo. This wasn't a fight. This was a war of cultures. A brash Irishman versus a quiet Brazilian legend. A 10-year undefeated king versus a storm that couldn't be stopped. The reign of Aldo. Jose Aldo was unbeatable, 10 years undefeated, dominant WEC and UFC featherweights. known for brutal leg kicks and takedown defense, and championship composure. But he didn't speak English, he didn't promote, he didn't play the media game. And then came Conor McGregor's arrival. The rise of the notorious. Conor was flashy, loud, and unapologetically confident. Knocked out Dustin Poirier, stopped Chad Mendes for the interim belt, wore suits, quoted Muhammad Ali, and said, "I'm not here to take part, I'm here to take over." Conor McGregor called Aldo a little kid, a scared man, a dead champion walking. The UFC sent them on a world tour. Everywhere they went, Conor insulted Aldo in front of his face, in his country, even in Rio. "If this was a different time, I'd invade your favelas on horseback. I'd kill everybody who's not fit to work." Aldo furious, but silent. He just said, "I'll shut him up with my fists." UFC 194. The explosion. The world watched. The feud peaked. It was finally time. 13 seconds. That's all it took. Aldo charged. Conor McGregor stepped back and landed a perfect left hook. The undefeated champion was flat on the canvas. Precision beats power, and timing beats speed. He was the interim. Now, I'm the real. Conor held both hands in the air. Aldo in tears. After 10 years, it was over in seconds. The aftermath, broken spirit. Aldo never mentally recovered. He lost his aura. Even though he fought on, that night changed him forever. And Conor, he became a superstar, a featherweight king. The first champ. The fight that made him a global icon was built on his feud. This was more than a rivalry. It was a psychological assassination. And when the dust settled, Conor McGregor didn't just win a belt, he ended a legacy. Number 3, Conor McGregor versus Dustin Poirier. When Conor McGregor and Dustin Poirier first clashed at UFC 178 in 2014, it looked like just another stepping stone for the fast-rising Irish superstar. Conor McGregor finished Dustin Poirier in the first round and dismissed him with his classic cocky attitude. At the time, many thought it was over, but that fight wasn't the end. It was the beginning. Fast forward to 2021. The rematch in UFC 257 shocked the world. Poirier returned with improved boxing, brutal calf kicks, and a mindset of a man on a mission. He stopped Conor McGregor in round 2 and even scored. But this wasn't just about wins anymore. This was becoming deeply personal. The trilogy came at UFC 264, and Conor's trash talk hit disturbing levels, accusing Dustin's wife, mocking his charity, and turning things ugly. But inside the cage, Dustin was dominant. He took Conor down, landed vicious ground and pound, and then came the leg break. The scene, Conor McGregor screaming, "This isn't over," with his legs snapped, was the ultimate cliffhanger. It was chaotic, it was emotional, and it was unfinished. To this day, Conor says this wasn't a real loss, and Dustin shrugs him off as a clown. But here's the catch. Neither have fully moved on. Conor still tweets about Dustin. Dustin still entertains the idea of the fourth fight. The fans? They're divided. Was Conor washed or just unlucky? With Conor set to return soon, Dustin still being a top contender, don't be surprised if the UFC books Conor McGregor versus Dustin Poirier 4. But now, this fight just seems to be a dream. Dustin Poirier has retired, and Conor McGregor wants to be the president of Ireland. A money-printing, legacy-defining clash. And this time, the stakes would be more if this fight were to happen. And whoever wins, that would make a proper closure. This could be a movie. Number 2, Sean Strickland versus Dricus du Plessis. Sean Strickland is chaos in human form. Dricus is prideful, gritty, and as confident as they come. When these two finally collided at UFC 297 for the first middleweight title, everybody knew it would be explosive, and it didn't disappoint. Their feud isn't just about fighting styles or ranking. It's about ideology, pride, and identity. Sean's no-filter personality clashed hard with Dricus. Calm but proud demeanor. From press conferences to face-offs, it got deeply personal. Sean even brought Dricus' family into the mix, and Dricus stayed composed until the fight night. The fight itself was razor close. The split decision, some thought Strickland should have won. Others believed Dricus edged it, but nobody thought it settled anything. After the fight, Sean didn't hold back. He said he got robbed, called the judges blind, and hinted at shady politics. Dracus, on the other hand, claimed Sean was just salty and delusional. The heat was never died down. Even today, the tension simmers on social media. Dracus has the belt, Sean wants revenge, and the UFC knows there's money in this rematch. The wild part, they fought again, and it was very personal. Strickland had to prove something to Dracus, and Dracus wanted to shut him up for good. Both have the fan bases who love to see that fight, and Dracus came out on top. Clear cut. He destroyed Sean Strickland. And number 1, Khabib Nurmagomedov versus Conor McGregor. This is the third time Conor McGregor has been mentioned. The guy just doesn't stop pissing people off. This wasn't just a fight, it was a storm of hatred, a cultural collision, and the most watched UFC event of all time. The silent destroyer Khabib Nurmagomedov was 26-0. No one could take him down. No one could stop his pressure. He had never lost a single round in his career. No one could shut him up because he never really talked. He has fought, he mauls, he smashes, he drowns opponents. He was the boogeyman of the lightweight division after Tony Ferguson. And then came the man who didn't fear monsters. The Irishman coming after a huge event in the boxing world, dominating Floyd Mayweather, the Irish Hurricane Conor McGregor, the king of height. He knocked out Jose Aldo in 13 seconds, won the lightweight title from Eddie Alvarez, fought Floyd Mayweather in boxing, made $100 million out of that fight. He was at his peak of his power, but he never defended the belt. While he was gone, Khabib won the belt, and that's when the feud ignited. The bus attack. UFC 223. Khabib had confronted Conor McGregor's teammate Artem Lobov in a hotel. Days later, Conor flew from Ireland to Brooklyn with 20 men and launched a dolly through the UFC bus window targeting Khabib. Yes, a metal dolly. Let me repeat that for you guys. It was on camera. It was real. Several fighters were injured. Dana White said, "This is the most disgusting thing in the UFC's history." But it sold the fight like wildfire. Fans were now obsessed. This was no longer a fight. It was a grudge match written in fire. Press conference from hell. Conor insulted everything Khabib stood for. His religion, his father, his manager, his home country, Dagestan. He even called Khabib's teammates terrorists. He offered whiskey to a devout Muslim live on air. Your dad is a quivering coward. You're a rat. A sniveling little rat. Khabib sat there, quiet, but boiling inside. UFC 229, fire meets ice. On October 6, 2018, the two entered the cage. Conor looked calm. Khabib looked possessed. Round 2, Khabib dropped Conor with a punch. Round 4, mounted him, smashed his face, and locked in a tight neck crank. Conor tapped. But that wasn't the end. It was just the beginning. The brawl that shamed the UFC till date. After the fight, Khabib leaped over the cage and attacked Conor's cornerman, Dylan Dennis. Meanwhile, Khabib's teammate jumped in and started fighting Conor inside the Octagon. They started punching Conor viciously. Fans screamed. Security couldn't control it. A riot was unfolding live on pay-per-view. Dana White refused to put the belt on Khabib in the cage, fearing fan violence. Fines and suspensions followed. The Nevada Athletic Commission banned multiple fighters for months. The aftermath? No closure. Khabib remained undefeated and retired 29-0. He never gave Conor a rematch. Conor has always called him a coward, a quitter, even insulted his deceased father, Khabib said. "We don't forgive, we never forget." The feud never cooled. To this day, it's the most watched, most controversial, and the most personal in UFC's history. This wasn't just a rivalry. It was a battlefield of culture, faith, family, and legacy. And when the dust settled, Khabib didn't just win a fight. He silenced the loudest voice in MMA's history. And that wraps up our deep dive into the UFC's most intense and unsettled rivalries in UFC history, some of which may never be resolved inside the Octagon. These feuds have shaped careers, broken friendships, and created some of the most iconic moments in the sport. But before you go, if you haven't already, check out our video on what's next for Charles Oliveira after a vicious knockout by Ilia Topuria. What's next for Charles? Can he rise again? Like, comment, and subscribe for more real fight stories and analysis. This is MMA Community, and we're just getting started. And subscribe for more UFC content.